Well, Doug, look, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. You know, we've had the big news announcement. Natron's coming to town. Creates a lot of capital on the ground, creates a lot of jobs, and a lot of folks are just super, super interested and excited about that. But, you know, what I'm amazed at, and I have conversation, and we've been as clear about this as I know how to be, but what is Natron manufacturing? You know, walk us through the technology and exactly what it is. I have made every attempt to try to explain it, and I feel like I've done a reasonable job. But, you know, I just don't know what I don't know, and now we've got the source here. Let's just tell us like it is.
All right. Well, actually, I got some show and tell, Mayor.
Even better.
So
Look at that. Tee that up.
This is one of our battery cells.
Okay.
So we will be making that completely in the North Carolina factory, and you know the capacity of the factory will be approximately 53 million of those per year.
53 million. Now, you know, I mean, that's a great prop, but what does that mean in terms of storage? I mean, capacity. So obviously it's a solid state of some sort, but what will that power and for how long? So what does 53 million mean, you know?
So 53 million battery cells, essentially what our device can do is we're a high power, high cycle energy storage device. And we basically can generate with a combination of that cell and what's called some battery management software that we also fully develop ourselves here at Natron, can generate 250 kilowatts of power for 2 minutes. And our primary market is in data and AI center backup battery resiliency products, and a second application inside that data and AI center is what's called peak shaving, where the demand coming into the data center or the AI center spikes very high, and our battery can be the buffer that provides the power for that spike. So it provides grid stability and grid resiliency to the local electrical network. So customers like Dominion Power are very happy with our products because we can smooth out the power load to the grid and ultimately to the electricity providers.
Well, and places like the city of Rocky Mount, who also sells utilities. So that's very meaningful. And really what that means to folks is you don't have many brownouts because there's too much demand and too little capacity. And so what you're doing is you're able to operate off battery power during those periods when everybody was super cold or whatever reason, and everybody's running everything they've got in their house. And it's just generally a challenge for everybody. But anyway, that's great. So how did the technology evolve? I mean, how did you guys come up with this? Who came up with it? And
great question.
Yeah.
So our founding technologist, and he's still with the company, he's now our chief products officer, Colin Wessels, did his PhD research in the 2010 timeframe at Stanford. He started with a chemistry that was being used in electrochromic glass. So you could, via a voltage and current, you could make glass lighter or darker. He started with that chemistry, and he observed that if we paired that chemistry with a sodium ion electrolyte, he could make a very high power battery device that also was intrinsically safe. And what that means is as opposed to competitors' battery devices, you can short circuit our device and it will not have any thermal runaway risk. It is very safe. And in the event of this short circuit, it's benign and no safety event occurs.
So I'm assuming thermal runaway means it won't fry you.
Exactly.
Okay.
If you actually go to our Natron.energy website, we have some safety videos where we run these safety tests and literally short circuit the device,
Mhm.
and nothing happens to our cell. I mean, it
Just
just
is.
nothing happens to it.
Okay.
And if you do this to a lithium ion cell, it goes off like a Roman candle. It's actually quite spectacular,
Sounds a little bit like the
but in a
marketing
bad
plan
way.
between Edison and Tesla, right? Between DC and AC. And but
Yeah,
anyway, that's interesting. I'll have to go check out those videos.
yeah, yeah.
So,
So after Colin developed that chemistry, he completed his PhD research. He's founded our company in 2012. And between then and now, he and the technologist have filed and gotten issued over 39 patents. We have another 40 plus patents that are pending at the US Patent Office. Our cell is the only sodium ion cell that we're aware of that has passed UL 9540A safety testing. All other cells have been tested
mhm.
to the protocol, but not passed it. Our cell has passed all of the tests that are prescribed in UL 9540A.
So I'm going to
We're
need
the
you to dumb
first.
that down a little bit. What is the United Laboratories test? What does that mean exactly, or in a layman's
So
terms?
what they will do is they will actually drive a nail. It's called the nail penetration test. And
Okay.
again, we have videos of these tests on our websites, and they will drive a nail completely through the cell,
Okay.
short circuiting it, and then extract the nail. And if you don't have an explosion or you don't have excessive temperature that's created, that's considered a pass.
Okay.
They also take the cells and crush them. They take basically a
Okay.
solid plate and then a ram, and they crush the cell. Again, our cell can be fully crushed and doesn't have a thermal event, doesn't have any safety event.
Right.
So tests like that.
And I'm assuming the sodium ion really doesn't generate any kind of brownfield or any other kind of hazardous waste, or does it? I mean, that seems to be that one of the challenges we have with batteries today in all forms is that hazardous waste, and how do you dispose of them?
Right. So our cell basically has iron
Mm-hmm.
and manganese and salt in it. All of the things that are used to make steel today. And so our battery cell is certified to be either incinerated or go into landfills without any additional requirements. So there's no lithium in it, there's no cobalt, there's no nickel, and there's no copper. There's essentially nothing that anybody would even want to try and recycle and capture any value out of it. It's all commodity type minerals, non conflict minerals or non rare earth minerals that
Yeah.
are in short supply.
Okay. Well, what is your current production for? So you started this in 2010. The technology, or at least the observation, was made that, hey, look, this compound or this mixture will hold a charge based off of some testing that was happening in, I guess, the postdoctorate studies or lab at
Sure.
Stanford, and so now we've said, okay, well, this works, and wow, it holds a charge, and it seems safer. When did this become from a thesis, idea, observation to something that we're actually packaging in batteries? And then where did you find the market, and how'd you find the market? Because, it's a long way from, hey, this works,
Sure.
to actually making a product that is commercially viable.
So I joined Natron in 2020. And at that time, we were making 200 battery cells a day here in our research and development headquarters in California.
Okay.
We have placed our battery cells with R&D labs within all of the tier one data and telecommunication providers here in the United States. They've evaluated our cells. At the same time, we were taking our cells and aggregating them into the final product form which is that device that will go at the end of a data center row.
Okay.
We've provided those samples to the data center operators. They've tested those products, and we've generated purchase orders for that product with those data center operators and aggregators in excess of $15 million worth of purchase orders.
Sure.
In 2021, we rented the facility that's in Holland, Michigan, and converted it from lithium ion to sodium ion. And we created our first cell in March of 2024 out of that factory, and we're in the process of ramping it. And also in 2024, we announced that we're coming to North Carolina and we're going to build a 1 million square foot factory there. And we're putting everything in place to start production in that facility I'll say Q2 of 2028.
Well, we're excited. So how far along, what are the next steps as it relates to that development? Because I know people here are very interested in that, want to see the ground broken, want to see a ribbon cutting. And I know that there's a process. It doesn't just happen overnight. So I know there's a capital stack. I went and looked at it. You get Department of Energy monies, State of North Carolina monies, and it feels like you've jumped a couple of hurdles. But where are we in that process?
So where we're at in the process right now is obviously everyone knows that we now have a new president.
That's right.
And the new president has, made some changes within the different departments within, his cabinet. So we are working with the Department of Energy to find out what that means to the timeline for the loan that we are in the process of. We have been invited into diligence for that loan. We're expecting that loan is going to move forward, and we will, basically be ready to start writing purchase orders for the equipment, so forth and so on, towards the end of this year. So everything is moving forward from our perspective. And so we're on our timeline right now.
Yes, and I think that's important to kind of go over. To be invited into diligence means that it's not only progressing, that it's really moving. But I think you ought to break that process down a little bit for those who are not as familiar with, dealing with large government pieces. But that's a big deal. It doesn't sound like much when you say it like that, but let's spend a little bit of time. It took you a long time to get to that place of diligence too.
Exactly. It took actually over a year.
Right.
Took a year and probably 4 months to get to the point where we got invited to diligence. So the first part of the Department of Energy Loan Program Office application is a technical review by the government scientists that our technology actually makes sense and does what we say it can do.
Right.
That process took about 6 months. So technical review is what's called part one. After we completed part one, we got invited to part two. Makes sense. Yeah. Part two is basically an assessment of the business. So looking at the customers, looking at the application, looking at the total market. They're making a determination. If we loan company X this money, will the business be able to pay the U.S. government back that loan? We
and
finished
that's you and me.
Part two.
That's us taxpayers.
Yep, that's me and you. Exactly.
That's it.
And all the good people of North Carolina.
That's right.
We finished part two towards the end of last year in December. And we were invited into part three, which is commonly referred to as diligence, right before the inauguration.
Right.
And so what happens in part three is the government hires third-party independent consultants, and in this case, 3 of them, one that does a technical review on Natron. So now they're verifying everything that Natron or company has told the loan program office during part one.
Mm-hmm.
They also hire a business consultant that will verify everything that was told to the government in part two. And then lastly, there will be an accounting consultant that will verify and audit the financials of the company that the government is considering loaning the money to.
Right.
And so that process generally takes between 6 and 9 months.
Okay.
So we're expecting that we will be exiting diligence with what's called conditional commitment,
Mm-hmm.
probably towards the September, October timeframe of this year. If everything goes to schedule,
Yep.
and nothing ever goes off schedule at the government. So
Never. but really what it's saying is that everything you said is qualified. You are now qualified and ready to receive funding to the extent the funding's on the table. And so you're sitting at the precipice, and we expect that you will be there in really a few short months, 6 months or so. And
Sure.
that's great. One of the things I'm most excited about too, and you're seeing a lot of press about it. You're not a battery technology. It's not necessarily green technology in the sense of green, although it's helpful. You're in the energy storage business. And, what I was reading this morning is that a number of the Meta and larger tech companies, particularly in computing space and AI, talking about trying to increase nuclear power in the United States just to be able to afford to continue the processing. And it feels like your technology fits right in line with that. It's something that is more readily available. And so, I think folks and ought to be thinking about this in terms of really what it is that you're bringing to the table. It's not just an alternative. You're energy storage, and you can do it for a very long time. And as I understand it, the technology will hold the charge at a much higher rate than will traditional storage batteries that exist out there in the marketplace. I think I'm right about that.
Yeah, you're right on the money there, Mayor. So the areas where the Natron battery system is the winning solution is anybody who needs high power in I'll call it short to middle durations.
Sure.
Anybody who needs to cycle that from 100% charge down to 0% charge many times. So a lithium ion cell you can cycle 100% to zero, maybe 1,000 times before it starts to degrade. Our battery cell you can cycle 50,000 times before it starts to degrade.
Right.
In addition, anybody that values the safety aspect of our battery cell is a prime candidate to purchase our system. So,
sure.
Yeah.
Well, no, I think you're right in the great space, and I'm excited that this is progressing and moving along, and hopefully you get to Rocky Mount sooner than later, and that funding comes ahead of schedule, which would be very unusual for the government. But nonetheless, I would like to see it happen at least once in my lifetime, and I would pick this project. How about that? But I do know this:
you
that,
and me both.
We have a lot of challenges. We have, as you might imagine, a lot of folks coming to us wanting to create processing centers or data storage or Bitcoin mining, and all these are big energy draws, and we only have a finite capacity, and we are part of Electricities, and so we're buying it from other third parties. We are wholesaling it. We are buying it wholesale, selling it retail, in charge of retailing it, but you just don't add capacity in the grid overnight, and I think that's something that folks really need to fully appreciate. I can't just say I want a couple of kilowatt hours, because that's a lot of electricity. That's a lot of energy, first of all. It's a lot of
Sure.
energy. And you can't just add it and make it happen tomorrow. And this gives an opportunity to stretch it during those periods where we're not in the peak times. And when, there's not as much energy being demanded, you can actually store it and then use it during those peaks. And you would I would expect, and I'd like to hear if you've done any studies, that would suggest to me that you could then expand the grid, or at least expand capacity in the grid for some period of time while you built, if you will, the infrastructure to be able to generate the power on an ongoing basis. Have you done any kind of studies along those lines, and where places are kind of maxed out in terms of their capacity to generate power?
Actually, I am not aware of any studies that we here
Okay.
at Natron have done in that regards. I can tell you to what you were just speaking to, that just in building the North Carolina factory, one of the long lead items is the power feed that we will need to operate the factory.
Right.
In talking with Dominion Power, they say that the transformers and the switch gear and all of that grid infrastructure is going to be in excess of 2 years just to get the equipment, right? And in the case of, like, let's say EV charging stations, they have the exact same problem. If you want to charge multiple electric vehicles at the same time, you got two options. You can either build out your interconnect at wherever you're going to do that charging, or you can put a large Natron battery buffer in between the grid and those electric vehicles that you want to fast charge. Mm-hmm. So in that case, we actually do have case studies. We have a demonstration site at UC San Diego where they're taking our battery buffer and putting it with an EV charging station and doing exactly what you just said at the EV charging station level.
Makes sense. I mean, so nobody's using power, let's just say at 2 a.m., we'll charge up those stations. They're ready to receive a car. We can recharge it, and that's when the energy production is the cheapest.
Exactly.
Well, the point I'm trying to make is that your product is a solution. And look, I know virtually nothing about grids or nothing about electric generation other than the little bit I've learned in this small tenure I've had as mayor, because it becomes very important when you start looking at a new age of technologies and jobs and opportunities. And we, it just takes time to generate all this stuff. So you're a solution to this. In fact, you may even be a way, the technology may even be a way to expand or to create larger capacity within the grid, in terms of the power generation of that. Because, just the thought of getting another nuclear power plant online, while I think that maybe makes sense if you're looking at 100-year cycles, it's a long time. These things don't just happen. And so anyway, I want to applaud y'all for the technology. I think it's awesome. I'm excited. And, I'm excited that you guys are engaged where you are. So anyway, that was just an observation. I didn't mean to interrupt your thought process there.
No, I was just going to make a comment on your comment on nuclear. Certainly the time frame. I'm not an expert in nuclear power, but I do know that the time frame to permit and build a nuclear power station far exceeds any timeline that it would take to build a Natron battery factory.
Well, believe it or not, I actually have an old fraternity brother that is a nuclear scientist, and he sells uranium for the government, and even to buy the product to be able to put into our nuclear power plants is no small task. I mean, that's got a lot of complication. It takes a long time to enrich it, and yeah. So I mean, none of this is going to to the store and buying a battery and popping it into your whatever. This is years to fix, and then once you set a direction, is it the right direction, the best direction? And these are all generational decisions, really. But I don't think folks think of it in these terms. And I'm just trying to challenge folks thinking along the lines of, hey, look, this is a challenge. How we're going to fix it. This is a very safe product. It's going to create, we hope, 1,100 jobs in our area. We are appreciative of the investment. The government, federal government in this case, while maybe this started out as a green technology, and perhaps it is from the standpoint of it saves some charge, it saves some, it allows us to use the energy that's already been generated. However, it's something that's needed. It's something that's coming down the pike and is commercially viable. It's not just a tree hugging, let's save the world technology. But I think it could. I think it could. I think it could be at least a part of that.
Yeah, it certainly will make the world a better place tomorrow than it is today.
That's right. And so anyway, we're excited. Let us know how we can help you. Thank you for coming today. I tell you what, it's great. We get a lot of questions about Natron. I do appreciate you clearing up, or not clearing up, but at least describing in more layman's terms really what the product is, how it came about. What its applied technology will be as it relates to the world around us, and and let us know whatever we can do to help you. I know there are a lot of people who are eager to receive you once you guys get here.
Great. And I can tell you unequivocally, everybody that we've dealt with within the local and state government there in North Carolina has been great, and we're eager to come to North Carolina.
Well, occasionally we get on our best behavior, so I'm glad to hear everybody's doing that this go around. Anyway, thank you, Doug. Right. Have a great week, and look forward to seeing you soon.
All right. Look forward to seeing you soon as well, Mayor.